is in fact a Canadian invention. The year was 1874, and the McGill University football team first implemented the modified rules of English rugby in a game with Harvard. The potent offense of today's game was not yet evident, and the game ended 0-0. In 1891, the Canadian Rugby Union was formed, followed by the birth of the Big Four, comprising teams from Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. Our modern-day game certainly has no monopoly on competitiveness.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Fantasy CFL Podcast. I'm your host, John Sullivan. You may know me as Buffalo66, or you may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em, or my other podcasts that I'm involved in. I'm glad you're back with us. Today, we decided Gaby's going to stick to the production side of things, and he's going to help distribute this podcast through Fear the Beard Media. So going forward, it's just going to be me. And that's going to result in a much more direct, compact podcast, mostly just reviews and previews to get you ready for all the CFL games. I hope you like it. If other topics become necessary or interesting, I'll delve into those as well. But try to get you, an under 30-minute, somewhere between 15 and 30-minute podcast to give you a quick listen to get your lineups ready for the week in CFL. And let's get started. Back for another episode. I had an 0-2 week. I went 1-2, the week before. But that puts my losing streak at 4. So 4 losses in a row. Overall record on the year wagering is 13-9-1. My DFS lineup was competitive. As I predicted, Naaman Roosevelt had his rebound game. Fading Caleros paid off somewhat. He managed to get 300 yards on pretty much the last gasp. So he got the 300-yard bonus, but he only had one TD. So let's get to the reviews from last week, and we'll start with the early game was Alouettes 27, Lions 38. I bet on the Owls to cover plus 9.5, and that was pretty much blown by Deron Carter. For those of you who know, he's the number 1 wide receiver, son of Chris Carter, the Hall of Famer. He was very surly and combative with his own teammates, and he basically took the game off. It reminds me of Terrell Owens in his later years, that Stevie Johnson when he played with the Bills, if he didn't get his way, he took the game off and spent more time bitching than paying attention to what was going on in the field. I think avoiding Montreal players is almost a must at this point. This game went over easily. I was a little surprised by that. I believe the total was 48.5. BC looked good at home. They scored more points than I expected against that Montreal defense. They're solidified as a playoff team for sure. But you wonder, how many meaningful games they're going to have the rest of the way. They're going to need to win a couple to secure their playoff spot, but they're going to fall in, either second or third, depending how Edmonton does. So the second game last week was the Rough Riders at the Bombers. It was Rough Riders 10, Bombers 17. It was Saskatchewan covering by 0.5 point. They were plus 7.5. They're a cover machine. I think they've covered their last 4. But still only 1 win outright on the year for them. Roosevelt had some big grabs. He had 120-something yards. Finished banged up, though. On Winnipeg's side of the ball, Weston Dressler had that kind of game that I really expected from him in week 1 before he got hurt. Winnipeg is maturing into a consistent offense with Matt Nichols. They traded away Drew Willie, actually. But they need to stay healthy. This game was way under. I think the Rough Riders are still going to be competitive going forward. They would love to play spoiler at some point, and like I said before, even the worst teams in the league usually get 3 to 4 wins in a season. So we'll see what happens. The premier matchup of the week was the third game. It was Stampeders at Eskimos, and Calgary won in overtime, 34-28. And this game was a huge bad beat for underbettors. I believe the over/under was 54, and there was a fury of late scoring that led to overtime. The Eskimos actually led 17-3 at the half here. On the Calgary side of the ball, Bo Levi Mitchell is really a quietly most outstanding player candidate this year. he's just so consistent. He never really puts up a monster game, but he always puts up that, he always puts up that low to mid 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns. It's just so tough to pay up for that. He's always the top 2 or 3 expensive quarterbacks. You're looking for somebody who's going to have a bigger day than that when you're playing daily fantasy. Calgary spreads the passing yardage around, and Devaris Daniels was the big earner there. He had 116 yards and 2 TDs. Eskimos, their big players always seem to play decent, but their main problem this year is they've been having trouble playing with a lead. And I think that's more on coaching than it is execution, but it's probably both. And that's something to keep in mind if you're going to bet a total on an Eskimo game. If they get out in front, that game's probably going over because they're going to give up a bunch of points. So something to think about. And let's move. The last game from week 12 was the Tiger Cats at the Argos, and Argonauts won 33-21. I had Hamilton as a 6.5 favorite, and Argos won outright. Hamilton actually led 20-16 at the half. I thought they were going to get the job done. Toronto scored 17 unanswered points in the third quarter. Dan Lefevre, replacing the injured Ricky Ray, had a decent game. 329 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. Gurley caught a touchdown. Brandon Whitaker was the engine for the Toronto offense. And as I've said in earlier podcasts, he'll get a lot of touches if they take the lead. I mean, he led the comeback, but if they get any traction with him, he gets a load. But Claros managed 300 yards barely, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. Masoli vultured another rushing touchdown, which is always steers me away from C.J. Gable. C.J. Gable's had a couple of big games, but he's just, unless he breaks a big pass or run, he's not getting a touchdown. Terrence Tolliver is still the main man of the wide receivers. Game was right on the total, depending which number you got, so it was either over or under 53, 54, that range. So yeah, that's it for week 12, and I took 2 losses, and we'll see what happens this week. The lines are still forming, in my opinion. There's only really one play that I'm settled on. So I'm not going to really talk about any fantasy strategy this week. I'm just going to go right to the previews and get this podcast up so you guys can listen before the games start tonight. I'm going to start with tonight's game is Montreal at Hamilton, and Tiger Cats are 10-point favorite. 53 is the over-under. The Owls are a mess. They had fights in practice this week. Duron Carter, Rakeem Cato, banned from practice, off the field. I just don't see how you can play anybody on offense with them. I mean, if I was in a GPP, I think that's like that reverse contrarian psychology. You pick the guys that are, the team that looks the most desperate and horrible and uncertain. That's the team you want in your GPP. But as a cash game player, I'm staying away. This is actually sort of a must-win game for Hamilton, the way they've played the last few weeks. They need to get separation in the standings from Toronto. Toronto's kind of hanging on by a thread here. I think they're only a game apart in the standings. Don't quote me on that. I don't have it in front of me, but they need to get some separation. Tasker, Tolliver, Gable, Brandon Banks, all the great non-quarterback options. I haven't looked at the prices, so I don't know what Claros is priced at. I do like the under here at 53.5. It's been sitting at 53 all day, and I really want that half a point. Don't have a lean on the side. This could be a blowout. This could be close. I don't know. Staying away, but I do like Hamilton's offense to rack up some yardage. So Saturday we got 2 games. The first game is Toronto at Winnipeg. Bombers are -6, and the total is 50.5. So if you're a believer in Lefevre, or a believer if you're a Canadian, You have to like the Argos to cover here. I am not a believer in Fever. He was very, I would say, consistently mildly horrible as a starting quarterback for Montreal in his last stint in the CFL. Maybe he connects with the coaching staff in Toronto, but I just can't bring myself to play him in a DFS matchup. I do like Gurley and Spencer as the wide receiver options for Toronto. I think Gurley, it's a big step up for him with Lefevre. And Deontay Spencer, of course, if he returns punts and as a starting wide receiver, that's very attractive play if the price is right for you. And, Brandon Whitaker is always an option there. If you like Winnipeg, Matt Nichols, I don't know if he's worth the price for what you're going to get out of him, but he's been pretty consistent in a middle DFS kind of return. I like any value-priced Winnipeg receivers. Dressler looked really impressive last week. That was what I expected out of him all year, and they seem to be getting better and better. As far as the total goes, I like the under here at 53.5. It's at 50.5 right now. If it gets down to like 48, I kind of like the over. So I'm kind of waiting to see if this moves. But again, this is a game where I don't really like playing either side. But if you like the quarterback situation for the Argos, I think you got to lean Toronto plus the points there. And then late Saturday night, we've got Ottawa-Calgary. This is a premier matchup of the week. Calgary is, obviously the number one team in the league. They're 8.5 favorites at home, and 54 is the total. I've said in an earlier episode I take Ottawa plus the points versus anyone in the league, and I will in this game. As soon as the total's up to where I want to bet, I will take the 8.5 points, hopefully maybe 9 if I'm lucky. Tough matchup for them, however. My opinion is Trevor Harris is going to try to stretch the field, throw deep balls to Chris Williams and Ernest Jackson. If Calgary decides to deny the long ball and allow underneath, then you're looking at Ellingson and probably Ernest Jackson to have bigger days. And if that's the case, you also think under. Whichever the lowest on the Calgary side of the ball, I've already said I don't really like paying up for Bo Levi-Mitchell. But whichever is the lowest price of the top three receivers for Calgary is probably the best option to take. They just spread their yardage around. Devaris Daniels is obviously the hot player, but somebody like Joe West or Bakari Grant or somebody like that could have a big day. You never know. I like I said, I like Ottawa to cover here, and I might have taken the money line. I think is like plus 330, and I might have taken some of that, except for that I hate the Ottawa kicker, and I think that is going to be the reason why they won't win the championship this year. Is because he's going to cost them a game either in the playoffs or even in the Grey Cup. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he's worked out all the shanks. But I think he's had 4 posts this year. That's really hard to do. So unless the money line gets super high, like 500 or something like that, I probably won't take any of it. But I do like them to cover here. And the last game of Week 13 is the Edmonton Eskimos at the Rough Riders. Rough Riders are a 5-point puppy dog, and 55 is the current total. And it's really hard to fade the Saskatchewan against the spread. They've been a cover machine. So you kind of like to want to take them here, but with Naaman Roosevelt out and their running game is just a huge question mark all year, it's hard to want to take them. There's part of me that says, they're due to win a game outright. And there's part of me that says they're due for a thrashing. Caleb Holley is going to be the guy that's going to get the most receiving yards, most targets this week. I don't know if he'll have the most receiving yards. Excuse me. All the Edmonton studs are in play as usual. Every week I put a lineup out, and nobody else seems to play Kenzel Doe except for me. He's the main return guy for Edmonton. He's 3,100. I don't know. I haven't looked at the prices this week, but at 3,100, it's almost a guarantee that he is going to make value every week, just returning kicks and punts. If he gets in the game as a backup running back, or he gets a pass here or there, that's just gravy. So it's so easy to plug him in at 3,100, whether you use him at a flex or a running back, and put studs in your lineup in your cash game. I just recommend that play, and I may do it again. I like the idea of scalping Edmonton -5 with Saskatchewan money line here. That's called a reverse middle, for those of you not familiar with sports betting, because I think it's going to be one or the other. I think Edmonton's going to crush, or Saskatchewan's just going to finally win one outright. I think the Riders have at least 2 wins left of them, and the rest of the way. There's 7 weeks left. I think they have 6 games left. So I think they're going to win at least 2 of them. But Edmonton's, they're due for a win. We'll see how this plays out. We'll see where the total goes. I'm not really sure what side of the fence I'm on there. So, well, that's it for this week. I'm going to post a lineup real quick on my Twitter page very soon. And as always, I post my plays and my monthly records on my Twitter page, which is at Buffalo Hold'em. You can check out this podcast on my YouTube channel called Buffalo Hold'em. But, of course, you can find it through Fear the Beard Media on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, various platforms. Gaby's great about distributing it on all those formats, so you can subscribe that way too. So good luck this week with your lineups, your wagers. Thanks for listening as always. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll see you next week with another episode. Take care.